Without further ado, I'm going to bring up our incredible guest speakers this evening, our thought leaders. I keep saying guest speakers because I used to say guest speakers, and thought leaders is just way better of a term to discuss who these people are, because they are forging their own paths through the world of film and music and doing things that are out of the box and different, and we're going to get in there with them today and figure out how they do what they do. So Lythion Music, everybody, come on up. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Ileana and James, they are married. They're fantastic. And I'm going to let them get up here with their microphones and get on up here on the stool. It does swivel a little bit.
I'm here. I'm up.
Yes.
Hello, hello.
Awesome. And your purple pants. Yes. So you guys have been working together for quite some time now. Yeah.
15 years.
15 years. Can we go back a little bit? First of all, can you introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and where you came from?
Where we came from.
Where you came from.
I'm Ileana Kadushin. I was born outside of Miami in Coral Gables, and raised in Maryland for a little while, but then I made my way back to New York to attend NYU. And it was actually through some people that I met at NYU that I ended up meeting this fella at a recording studio one night. So we met in the music arena, but it was thanks to some people in the film school of NYU that I call them my cupids.
Lovely.
I'm James Harrell. I was born and raised in Southern California, and when I was 20 years old, I was broke and decided to just pack my bags, and I came east to New York. And that's when, things started picking up financially, musically, started playing in bands. I got to tour with some bands. And we met because I was working in a restaurant. I'd just come back from Europe from a trip, and the owner of the restaurant recognized me from a band that I played in, this band called Bile, which was a hardcore industrial metal band. Yeah. And he was like, he goes, "Oh, my band's recording an album. Will you come play keyboards?" And I said, "Sure." So I was the second day on the job, and now I was hanging out with the boss, recording with his band. And his drummer was the one.
Wait, pause. The
boss.
The boss?
The boss.
Moving on,
So
go on.
And his drummer was the one that introduced us, so that's how we met.
You met because of the boss?
Yeah, pretty much.
Are you talking about Bruce Springsteen?
No, Springsteen. No, Bruce Bromberg, actually.
Did you hear Bruce and the boss?
I heard the boss.
No.
Okay.
That would be an awesome story.
It kind of is now.
Yeah.
But
No,
still,
I didn't see Bruce.
Okay.
Bruce didn't come into play until much later.
Okay, cool. Still, I liked it. It was good.
And yeah, we started, she was in a play called The Hussey Chronicles. And at the time, that's when Rudy Giuliani made the, what was it, the
42nd Street.
42nd Street
All
burlesque.
the porn theaters,
Porn
show
theater.
world.
So
They were mandated to show films and
theater pieces. So we worked on a piece called The Hussey Chronicles, and I did the music for that. And the fun part was you'd get the guys coming off the street singing the sign for The Hussey Chronicles, and we're like, it's not that kind of show, man. And they would walk away back
They'd
down.
see the actresses coming out of the play, and we'd be like, we can't give you that.
No. Times have changed.
Yes.
Disney is here now. Yes. Yes.
It's now Disneyland.
It's now Disneyland. Fantastic. Well, kind of in your own words individually, what musical influences have you had throughout the course of your life? What influences you?
For me, I grew up listening to Frank Sinatra and Stan Getz from my mom, and Kingston Trio and a lot of Irish folk music from my father. So that's kind of in there. But I'd have to say Prince was probably like the biggest inspiration and influence on me.
Yes.
That's when I knew I wanted to produce. And not just write the music, but play all the instruments and do as much as possible on it. So.
And he does. I mean, it's James. I think that's the night that I met James. Even though it was purely, as I will say to my friends. It was purely business, music business, nothing
On
romantic
the
at the
Hussey
time.
Chronicles,
But
yes.
I was incredibly in awe of the fact that he was a multi-instrumentalist that could compose. And I think Prince really is an influence in terms of production, in terms of hearing things in a really interesting way and elevating things like Prince does. For myself, I would say I have a lot of influences. There's me as a vocalist and then me as a producer. I would say like I listen to a lot of things in my lifetime that have influenced me as a singer. And one of the things I like about singing on soundtracks and singing in this world of scoring is it really allows me to bring in, I don't have to be one kind of singer. Or only be into one genre of music. It kind of depends on what we're doing. Because I have a background in opera, jazz, rock, blues, everything from really heavy singing to really light singing. And I would say I appreciate good music. And James and I both are similar in that like we can find things in every genre that we like, you know, we'll say to people like country music, for instance, where that might have a really strong stereotype around it and people are either like really against country music or really into it. But I think when you are into the storytelling of music and just really good musicianship, there are people in every genre that I appreciate. So I would say I have a lot of influences. It would be hard to pull out a few.
Well, that's very interesting. And I actually want to say, it's singer to singer. I mean, I don't so much sing professionally anymore, although sometimes I just got a gig, you guys. But anyway, I did. But it's interesting to hear that you are classically trained from the opera world, but also that you can do jazz and, you know, all of these other genres as well. And that's a very unique thing. And I just want to make that clear because most filmmakers wouldn't necessarily know that. So why is it that you can sing so many different genres?
Well, I just think, just strictly if we're talking about music right now, I think, and James also has this foundation, when you just want to learn good foundations of music, going to things like jazz and opera and getting good fundamentals, like really learning why instruments are the way they are and what they put into an arrangement and what tone is like and what mix and blend, I think starting with a really good foundation is important because then anywhere you go in life, like I took a really hard departure from that. I started working with dance music producers in New York City, and I'd go in studios and we'd just be doing all these crazy improvisational things over beats and tracks, and you'd just be like, this is so far from maybe what you would learn in school, but that's good too. It's like you learn fundamentals in anything, filmmaking, music, and then you innovate from those fundamentals. It gives you a strong foundation, I think.
Absolutely.
I've had friends, like we'd joke around where if we'd hear something that we liked from a musician, we'd go, thanks. You know, we'd take that and put it in our pocket and like use it somewhere in our music. And it's like, you don't want to cut yourself off, you know, from anything. You want to be inspired by anything, you know, and it's like music or sound or whatever walking down the street. You know, in New York is great. You know, you hear the subway coming down, and it's like da-ka-da-da, da-ka-da-da, and you're like, there's a rhythm, and that starts it out in your head. And you just pull from everywhere, you know.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So let's get into working with filmmakers and what that process is like for you guys. So first of all, what attracts you to a project? I mean, you don't have to take every project that crosses your desk. What is it that says, okay, yeah, this is something I'm going to work on?
I guess if we like it, you know, like if I read the script, I'm given a script and I like it, and you know, also the filmmaker, you know, whoever wrote it or directed, if I have a connection with them, and to see how excited they are about it. And you know, in this business, it's like you could make no money or you can make a lot of money on it. So you know, you can decide if you feel like, you know, you want to be a part of this project and see it all the way through, you know.
Because you believe in it.
Because I believe in it,
Right.
yeah. You know.
Yeah.
I'm attracted to tenacity in people. Like when we meet film directors and writers and producers who are talking about their project, like I'm attracted to people who are tenacious about their project. Like, and not to say that it's not also the things that James said, like a great script, and they seem like they've got their shit together, and they're movers and shakers, and they've got a good, strong like plan for, and also like knowing their project, like knowing their genre and what their goal is for it. Like I like people that seem really knowledgeable about what they want their path to be. Like they're not trying to, like that square round in a square peg, like they kind of have a little bit of a sense of where what they want to create would fit. They know their niche and what would be marketable, because then that makes us feel like you're in you feel confident, like that you're with somebody who knows, what they're trying to create.
Yeah, absolutely. Because how can you do your job if they don't have a solid sense of what it is that they want? Yeah, absolutely. And how do you seek out work, or do you seek out work? Does it come to you, or is it a little combo?
It's a combo. It's, a lot of the times it's, because I have people ask me, how do you get these jobs? And it's kind of who you know, because
networking. I'm going to drive it on home as we continue throughout this season. All right, go on.
Yes, networking. Yes. Like, in the beginning, like I was doing projects with like friends of friends. So, if I was working somewhere and somebody's like, oh, my friend made a film and they need music and I've heard yours and let's, make the introduction. And then that happens, and then, we get together and we start, building this thing, and we get excited, and boom, we're done. In 2007, we went to the Bahamas International Film Festival, and we had an animated short that we did the music for that premiered there. And we met we were the only composers in a sea of filmmakers. It was awesome. There was no competition at all. And we loved to go out. We partied all night with these guys. And we met an entertainment lawyer there who works in film. He works with pop stars. So when we got back to New York, he was like, called us up, like, oh, I've got some artists that, want to work on producing their songs and help with songwriting. So we started doing that. I've got some filmmakers, here's some scripts. And, it was like,
but that
wow,
brings up a really good point about festivals and going to festivals, whether or not you have a project. Because actually we went back to that same festival the next year, even when we didn't have a film in it, to support. We knew some other people that had some stuff in it, and we knew it was a great networking opportunity. And if you can swing it time-wise or work-wise or financially, a film festival can be a great, place to see, not only see films, but to like meet people. And I think that's a really good point. I would say beside that, his point of like I'm sure people have said this to you already, maybe in other formats, but relationship building is, to me, the key of whatever career you're in. Mm-hmm. And it's like, when I say that, I think what happens is that we all have goals and we can get really impatient with them. It's human nature. Like, you want it to happen. Like, you want your project to manifest, and you want your career to manifest and be realized. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is to like kind of go slow and nurture those relationships and see that people have to kind of get to know you. And then once they get to know you, they get to know your project, and then they trust you, and then maybe they want to take a chance on you. And that if you come too fast and too hard with people that you don't know, you might just, you won't feel that traction. So I feel like relationship building is really big. Yeah,
sometimes you have to be really mellow, because like if you go to these mixers, like sometimes people put together mixers, and you have all these hungry composers and filmmakers, and they're like, hey, what's your secret? What do you do? And you're like, whoa, back off. And it's a little too much. And then, you might not work that way, but, you're too excited, you're too hungry. So
I think that's a really good point, because when you are in a room and you're acting like a human, then like people take you as a human. And when you are in a room and you are just so past the point of eager that it comes off as desperate, then you're repellent, and you have to think about that sometimes when you're talking to people. It's like, what is my intent here, and why am I going after this person, and why am I talking to this person? Because if it's a true reason that you believe in yourself and you can go talk to this other person, then
because
great.
On the flip side of being repellent I'm very attracted to people that know how to talk about their projects. I'm a very vocally driven person. So when someone comes up and is able to really describe their project, their script, their pitch, like maybe they're a director and they're a writer and they're like, and they're really good at just like painting that picture, not with that sort of hungry, like I have an agenda with you, but I'm really good at like making you interested in my idea. That's a really important skill in networking.
It is. Yeah, very important skill in networking, and also talking to that person about them and getting to know them. If it's all about you, then that's a disconnect as well.
And I would say, because your question was how we got, and I would say I bring up that skill because I think that skill, my skill, me cultivating the skill I just described, got us, you know, a lot of, that's, you know, networking and talking is a really big part of my, you know.
I've had to transition because like the business aspect of it, I hated. And I would always dump it off on her. And then, you know, it was like, you know, I'm the artist, you know, and, you know, I just need to work. Don't talk to me. And it doesn't work. And, you know, especially if you want to like sustain life in New York City or, you know, as an artist, as a filmmaker, you know, producer. And so, you know, you just like, I would present myself like, what would you like to hear from me? Like what I've done the last 6 months, the last year, and they go, yeah, tell us, you know, what's going on. And, you know, because you get excited. Like when you have a job opportunity that's like almost right there, like you're like, oh, I'm going to make some money with this. But you got to be totally cool because if you seem too desperate, it's like, nah. Yeah. It's hard. So you got to, you know.
It can be. Be excited, not desperate.
It's like going on
an
audition.
Yeah, right.
And then like thinking about it, and then you never get that call back, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? When one opportunity doesn't pan out, it's just because another opportunity is waiting around the corner.
Wasn't meant to be. Yes.
Wasn't meant to be, exactly. Yeah, you gotta let it go and move on to the next. Fantastic. So let's talk about you guys in particular. You're sort of a, you know, Lythion Music is a one-stop shop, kind of, so to speak. You are. That you're not just music, but you also can do sound, and you also can kind of consult with your filmmakers and help them through that process. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Out of just like kind of necessity to like continue working, like on some of like the corporate gigs I've had with music, like in the advertising world, they'll come to you and they're like, oh, can you do like sound design? And you're like, sure, you know, I can do that. And because that's gonna, you know, they won't have to go to somebody else. You might get more money with it, or you might just get the job if you can do that. They don't want to, you know, farm it out to everybody. And over the years, like, you know, people are like, oh, you do music, you do sound, you know, you mix it and master it and produce it. Can you do, you know, video editing and motion graphics? And I'm like, yes, like I have all that stuff, so I've incorporated it in what I'm doing. And I get work that way. And it's like, you know, there's always 10 guys behind me on a job. And it's like you're bidding for a job. And if you meet that price, you know, and they like working with you, you'll get it. And that, you know, it gets a little cutthroat, but you have to, you know, it's a business.
And I think the focus is music, but yes, I think we became a post-production facility, a post-production company, like James is saying, to kind of afford opportunities in between just straight up music, you know, whether it be for commercials or TV pilots or films or different things that we've done, that, you know, him being able to do, you know, sound design, or we do voiceover, or like he says, editing, mixing, all that kind of stuff, that just opens up the stream a little bit more. And we enjoy doing some of those other things too.
And also, like on the top of films, you know, I could talk to the filmmaker about, you know, we can decide what the score is going to be and then incorporate the sound design as well, because I think that's important. You know, sometimes, you know, you need like something cool sounding that's not musical, and if you can build that in and talk about it, you know. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but like I got presented, I did a score for a film, and then after the film was done, the filmmaker came back to me and says, I need to prepare this for foreign distribution, which means once you take the English dialogue track out, there's nothing in it. And she said, can you do the M&E, the music and effects and all the Foley work? And I said, sure. And I'd done it in small productions, like 6-minute things, but this was like a feature-length film. And like it was like opening a can of worms. You have to put every sound back in the film, like this and, you know, anything, tapping, picking up. Like if somebody drinks, And even if the glass goes out of the shot, you have to hear that glass hit the table. You know, you have to put everything back in, and it's a huge, monstrous thing, but it's so much fun, because like once you get into it, you're like, oh my God, you know, somebody's raking leaves, but you're using like a trash bin full of paper to make that sound. But you'd never know, you know?
See, that's why I said he actually, James is a brilliant composer, but he's also really gifted at sound.
Yeah.
And just thinking about pure sound in film, which is, you know, I think just as interesting to you as the music, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is very interesting, and I think a really good plug for Lythion Music, and the fact that you aren't just about music, you are about sound in general, and we can get really philosophical here, and what is music? Isn't it just
What
sound?
is
And what is sound? What is music? Okay. Yes. We can do that over cigarettes later, and we'll snap. But anyway, I think that's really interesting. But that brings up a question for me as to if you're suddenly going to go and do a foreign distribution model, don't you want to think about that before you start your film? I mean, why was that something that's after the fact?
So I consider myself like a company man, like on anything that I do, be it music or like if I help a friend out with work, like let's get the job done. And in independent film and in, you know, it's like money is always an issue. So if you could work out like all the details in the beginning, like a lot of times I'm the last one in on a project, so I see and I hear every mistake. And you know, if your film's going through quality control, they won't accept it if there are, you know, huge problems sound-wise, even visually. You can have a scene where a glass door opens and closes quickly, but if you freeze that frame and you see all of your crew or camera equipment in that reflection, you have to go back and fix that. And you know, I've just seen filmmakers spend tens of thousands of dollars going back, flying around the country, doing ADR and, you know, with actors and pulling them into the studio when the problem could have been resolved before they even
Correcting
shot that
mistakes.
day.
I mean,
Yeah.
I believe to answer that one key thing that you said, that she did not, the director did not know, I think at the outset, beyond doing like digital distribution in the normal channels of like iTunes and Hulu. I don't know if she knew that she was going to be doing what her foreign distribution was going to be until she was already in deep, and then was then able to turn around to James and say, can you help me prep this for foreign distribution? But the point that James brings up about really being mindful at the beginning of your project about sound mistakes and is really important, because even Hulu and normal digital channels, their QC is really pretty strict. They will turn stuff away that's got sloppy technical stuff.
The video on demand and stuff like that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Was the M&E track and soundtrack together? They weren't separated out?
They're separate, yeah, the soundtrack
Can we just
is...
actually, sorry, one more time. Can you just repeat that question one more time?
Yeah, the idea is the M&E track should be separate from the soundtrack, and also that you have different languages coming in.
The M&E track and the soundtrack should be different.
Well, it should be constant. The soundtrack should, the dialogue track should be what shifts in and out.
Okay, so the soundtrack should be constant and the dialogue track should be shifting in and out. Is that what I heard correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
I deliver stems. So there's the soundtrack is one, and then, you know, like when you normally shoot, if it's in English, then you have your dialogue on the other one. And then when you get to the M&E, it's split up. And, you know, depending on how it's going to be output, like the Dolby, I don't do the Dolby or the surround sound, usually goes to a final output for that. But I'll break it up according to how they want it delivered. So, you know, when I put all the sound back in, so you have the music on a track, you have all the sound effects on a track, and then whoever wants to dub it can throw it in on their own. But it is separated.
And for those who may not know what M&E is,
Music and effects.
music and effects.
So stuff like,
Fantastic.
you know, cloth, you know, props, anything like this. A lot of head scratching. It's pretty crazy when you, like, how much you have to put back in, just like little time shifting When people move, you hear their clothes move. Feet is another thing. Like any footsteps, even if you don't see the feet, and you have to match the footwork.
Would you say fair to say that it's like the reality of every scene? Because
Yeah.
if the sound reality is not there, it seems like something's missing.
It becomes
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
kung fu movie,
Yeah.
you know, like it's really weird, you know, it's like there's not all that other sound, just like the punching and kicking sounds and then the dialogue, you know.
Love it.
Yeah,
I think
you
that's
killed my brother, you know.
Okay. That's awesome. That was- well, you should because they're awesome. I should probably take them up.
She's a black belt.
I am a black belt. That is true.
Really? I think that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. Okay. Do you sing opera when you kick? Okay, anyway, I'm sorry. So, have you ever worked with filmmakers who come into a project, come into their collaboration with you, and they just have really strong ideas as to what they want? And is that, what are the pluses and minuses for that for you guys?
I've experienced that in the advertising world, in the commercial world, because a lot of the creative directors and the producers will use temp tracks to edit and put together their pieces, whether it's a commercial or sometimes they're like little short 2-minute to 6-minute films. And sometimes that's fine. They have a fast turnaround on it, so they're already giving you an idea of the music. They don't want to use that music because they can't license it. It might be too much money. So I end up just like rescoring it. It's not pretty, but it's work, so it's like you do something that sounds familiar.
Well, yeah, that brings up, we've had a lot of, I would say in the film arena, people have been pretty collaborative with us. There's a couple of different things we could talk about here. One is the idea that, I was going to say, like, most recently, like the film Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, where, the director and everybody, they had really strong, they were trying to think outside the box with the music that they chose, and Brian Eno was the overall composer for that film, and they were trying to think, but they were very specific with each scene. And this is a true testament to James and his ability to do so many different genres as a composer. Was they were just like throwing scenes at him from that film to see, and he could kind of score and bid on those scenes to give them, where they'd say something like, this is what we want. And they knew really what the feel of the music for that scene, and James was able to throw back his versions of what they wanted. He was able to throw just about anything, and I think that's ultimately what got him into that soundtrack, being able to do that. But they were very specific, the director, Alfonso, was very specific about what he wanted. But the other issue I was thinking about was directors getting very attached to temp tracks. And this subject of people that get really attached to what they're editing to. They can't use the song.
Yeah, I worked on a film where like Public Enemy's Fight the Power was in there, Norman Greenbaum's Spirit in the Sky, Double Dutch Bus, and the director
Holy
was
copyright, Batman.
Yeah, yeah.
That's wow.
And so she was like, I really want these songs. And I'm like, then you're going to have to raise some more money. And she's like, I can't do it. So I just created my own, and she would come over and she's like, who rapped on this? And I was like, I did. And she's like, what? I'm like, like a chance to do a Public Enemy track, like I was like, right on, So like I channeled my inner Chuck D, and, I usually did it in the morning because like
I don't believe it, but it's in there.
my voice would be like booming in the morning from like just waking up and groggy. And so I'd be like, all right, I got to do Chuck D. And it's fun.
Cigarettes and some coffee and just like go to town.
I know, I just quit smoking. I smoked for 30 years and I quit in February. So,
All right. Good for you.
so
That's
now
fantastic.
I gotta do something else.
All right.
I gotta scream.
Get his husk another way. But that's rescoring has become, that makes the advent of rescoring become this really big thing, because people are like, but I'm really attached to that song. I edited to that, and that elevates my story and makes what my characters are doing in that scene. I need something, like they just get that attachment to your temp track.
And also
makes it hard.
Also what I'll do is I'll do something like that and I'll create another piece and I'll give them a choice and I'll just sit back. And that's another thing. It's like I don't push anything that I do on the filmmaker. They're employing me. So I want to put in my 2 cents, but I also want to give them the opportunity to say yay or nay, and it just works out so much better. Like I've done it working with young artists where I feel really strongly about something, and I'm like, maybe we should do it this way, and they're like, no. So I let it ride, and I let them do it their way, and then they're like, it's not working, and I'm like, can we go back the other way? And they say, sure. I'm like, thank you. So, you got to be diplomatic.
Yes.
Oh,
you
that's
gotta guide
collaboration.
them. Yes, that's collaboration, yes. But you also have to manage expectations. I mean, you can't just always deliver what they have in their head, because sometimes what they have in their head is unrealistic. And, your job is partially to guide them. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Speaking of guidance, what is it that some filmmakers come to the table with, or don't come to the table with, that they really should be thinking about from the beginning, that they just don't think about, and you guys kind of save the day?
Like I said, just thinking about maybe music and sound from the beginning. I love reading a script and like coming up with usually I'll do a piece off of the opening sequence, because like the opening sequence of a film is so cool. It's like your little chance to like set it up and do something dramatic. So that'll be my pitch. And sometimes they're like, oh my God, this is the music for my film, And then once you get in there, I start talking about sound and sound design and where are your locations at. And, because you have to control everything around you, the sound. If you're doing it on the street, you got to make sure that you can get your scene in without planes flying over and trucks going by or crazy people yelling at you or whatever. And it doesn't happen a lot, not in the independent film world, but I always tell filmmakers, get your composer on the top, and your sound designer to work with your editor and your cinematographer. It's like, what is this film going to look like? The color correction, everything. Like, what is the mood that you want? And if you get all those people together in the beginning, you can start creating music. One case was I created a piece of music for this guy, and he went out on the location and he played the music that I wrote for him, and he's like, this fits with like the location and everything.
And that's a real shift in thinking, because composers are, tend to be the last. It's sort of considered always the final ingredient or the icing, whereas I can tell films that I feel like it's more intuitive than that. It's not sort of like this last ingredient slapping my soundtrack on my movie. It feels like maybe that composer was part of the original team. And I think, I know that budgets very often make people feel like they can't think about music. I can't think about music. I just need to get my locations and film this and get my actors. And it sort of makes you feel like that there's an indulgence in thinking about music and sound. But on the sound side of it, I think that's where a lot of the pitfalls happen, is that you should really be thinking about sound and music, not getting attached to temp tracks, but thinking about sound and music from the beginning so that it's really organic and intuitive. So by the time you are having a conversation with your composer and your sound designer, you're able to talk to that, composer and say, I want the scene to feel like this, and I want my audience to feel like this, and what if we, could really change the mood here? Psychologically, we want people to be feeling like, make that as integral as your script and your cinematographer, because that's going to separate you. I mean, to me, great films have that sound and music dimension. It, man. The sound and the music is just inside you. It's not manipulating you and telling you how to feel, but it's a part of the storytelling. And I think that's a preparation to answer, to say that. And I mean, I think the sound side of it is more of what James feels like will affect your budget if you do not, or if you're not mindful of those kind of sound mistakes in terms of your actors talking and extraneous sound and not thinking about, I've seen films where the music's really good and then the sound is really no one thought about the sound.
And you can tell.
When I watch movies, because I'm so aware of it, I was watching, it was one of the Daniel Craig James Bond movies, and the Foley work was just didn't sell it. Like there's explosions and there's music, but then like I was looking at, he was carrying a briefcase or something, and I'm like, that's not the right sound for that. Like what is, like it just didn't, and like I'm very, it's hard. I have to sit back and go, oh, it's just a movie that I didn't make and watch it, but like I'm picking it apart, and it happens because like I have to go, whatever I work on, I'm going through, fine tooth comb and making sure every detail is there. Like when I work on stuff, I'm like, well, other filmmakers and sound designers and composers and audio people are going to listen to this. I have to sell it to them as well. And
Sure.
like, that's just my paranoia, I guess.
Well, I come from an acting background, and although I'm not so much doing it anymore, I produce. But I, remember when I was in one of my first acting for film classes, Peter Kelly, right here in New York. He's a former thought leader at Film Interchange. Okay, so anyway, Peter Kelly said to our whole class, the first thing he said about film was the most important thing about film is sound. Period, end of story. And I think that that's something that is universally taught in film schools, all around the world, that sound is more important than your picture. And you would think it's the opposite way, but it's just not. Sound really is more important than your picture.
You shouldn't notice it. It should be like wallpaper, essentially, like all your sound design, like all the incidental sounds and stuff like that, because it'll stand out. If you see somebody do something and you don't hear a sound for that, no matter how minimal it is, it takes you out of the moment. And we're in Coney Island last weekend, and we went to the film festival, and there's all these really great short films, and a couple of them, they were great, but the sound was bad, and you're out of it. And it's unfortunate because.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, we were just talking about some films that you thought were really great in terms of like a complete sound picture. Can you give us an example?
Yeah, we were, so the other night, knowing I was coming here, I was like, what movie do I love and have watched a million times? And, I'm going to watch it again. So
On DVD.
On DVD, yeah, which I haven't watched the DVD in years. So I went through and I pulled out Seven, the David Fincher film. And I love that film. I love everything about it. I love the story. I love the sound. I love the music. I love the way it looks, the way he shoots, directs, the styling, the way, the color correction. It's like, it's one package. And, the sound design is incredible. And like, I popped in my headphones and I just sat there and I was paying attention to the sound. And there's that scene where like Morgan Freeman is throwing a switchblade knife at the dartboard, and the only thing going on is like the neighbors in that apartment. And I think living in New York City, you can appreciate that, like when your neighbors are fighting, and it's just created so much tension. If there was no sound, it would just be him throwing this thing, but you hear people fighting and some guy like, shut the fuck up, and that whole banging, and you just feel like uneasy, and you're in the scene. And they fly in these crazy little things. Howard Shore did the music for it. It was really minimal. It was like wallpaper. It just sort of helped punctuate stuff.
It did seem like more sound than music in that one. It was interesting. It was like sound as music. Yeah.
And like that's, frequency's another thing, like low rumbling, like when you go to a concert and you're standing in front of the subwoofers and like, that bass comes in, you're like, oh my God, like it's literally moving you, like there's frequency like all throughout us running through the blood in our veins, and, we react to different frequencies, and you can convey different feelings, like high pitch, low rumbles, and it doesn't have to be music or composition. It's just this,
and it's intimate. It's like I can think of another for me. Like I don't know when he brought up Seven. For me, I was thinking about Spike Lee's Summer of Sam, another like New York, edgy. And I bring that up because it was like there was a lot of sound. There was a lot of like environmental sound in it as well as music, like people in apartments. And I mean, it's like the examples that, James and I are bringing up are things that are sort of these horrifying stories, Summer of Sam and Seven, and for
The
you,
Shining.
and for you, The Exorcist and The Shining, and
Wow, there's a theme.
horror. I was talking about that with you before, of like people's predilection for thrillers and horrors.
Come over to our basement afterwards.
But maybe that's an interesting point, in that directors of thriller and horror maybe they're thinking about sound more than other genres of directors. I don't know, because they know that sound gets under our skin. Maybe, you know, rom-coms and other kinds of films are not thinking about that. They're just thinking like, let's move these characters along and let's play a nice song to move that along. You know, it's a different thinking about using it.
That's an interesting point, because it resonated with me when you said it, that there is something about horror films or, you know, thrillers in general that are percussive in nature, that you almost have to go there, and it's a little gritty, and it just, you feel like you're in a basement, and what do you do in basements?
Well, everybody remembers the guy that's playing the serial killer in Summer of Sam. There's like a dog barking that he's like, shut that dog up, and the dog is barking and his fan is going, and like everything psychologically for that actor. Of course, his performance was brilliant, but the sound build that Spike Lee created made you feel like, I don't feel safe anymore. Like, as a spectator of this, what the hell is this guy gonna do?
Yeah.
That was, you know, that was a dimension of that storytelling. You know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of none of the things that we just said, that's my segue. Is that good? You like it? Okay. Changing gears. We're going to take a look at a clip. So this was a film, Bad Parents, that you did with Janine Garofalo, comedy. This is my fun little fact. What was that? You worked on it, Bob? Yeah. Yes, Bob. This is why we bring Bob Siegel here. I also want to mention that I was born in the exact same hospital as Janine Garofalo. Okay, so let's watch it.
Meet Kathy. She's moving from New York to the suburbs.
I am a soccer mom.
Stop yelling at my kid!
She has no idea what she's in for.
I would like to make a motion that we split the U8 girls by ability.
Did you hear they're going A and B this year?
You know, go A and B team.
You're on the B team. Don't worry, our kids are going to be in the A team.
Tiny, shiny diamonds. Unfortunately, some of you are going to need to be cut.
Did he actually say cut? They're gonna cut some of these cute little girls. They're cutting some.
Some parents will do anything.
Are you asking to be my assistant coach?
I think Lindsay could.
Meet Kathy. She's moving from New York to the suburbs.
I am a soccer mom.
Stop yelling at my kid!
She has no idea what she's in for.
I would like to make a motion that we split the U8 girls by ability.
Did you hear they're going A and B this year?
You know, go A and B team.
You're on the B team. Don't worry, our kids are going to be in the A team.
Tiny, shiny diamonds. Unfortunately, some of you are going to need to be cut.
Did he actually say cut? They're gonna cut some of these cute little girls. They're cutting some.
Some parents will do anything.
Are you asking to be my assistant coach?
I think Lindsay could benefit from an extra day of training.
Absolutely.
Playoff tickets, you know.
To help their kids win.
You have no idea how lucky you are. No, my daughter is. Isn't that what I said?
When the going gets tough,
It's time to start cracking skulls, don't you think?
these parents
We would do anything for our kids, right?
get crazy.
Hi.
Parents, they're the enemy. They are vampires.
We're gonna go get ice cream after the tryouts, okay?
$20 in it for you if you score.
No computer for an entire month.
No dessert if you don't.
You can't cost us this game!
Janine Garofalo. Bad Parents.
I have lost a lot of friends to youth soccer.
That's good. Very good. That's just too funny.
It just cracks me up because we have friends that have kids in youth soccer, and this is like a black comedy that, like, you know, they're like, yeah, this is real. They're like, that actually happened.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Where parents are so invested in their kids.
Yeah, that they're gonna take, you know,
Yeah.
a fur coat and walk into coach's
Sherry
office.
O'Terry, my God,
Oh,
she
yes.
stole the movie.
Did she? Fantastic. Gotta check it out. I haven't seen it yet.
So that's awesome. So Kate the Gentis, who did that film, I loved working with her. She's so much fun, and you know, like besides doing the music, I did the M&E on this, and I did some other work for her. And it's like anything she does in the future, like she calls me up, she's like, I've got questions. I'm like, I'll come out, whatever you
Done.
need.
Yeah.
Like do it. And I love working like that. And you know, it's like you want to walk away from a project and know that they're going to call you, or you can always help, or they'll help you with something. And it's like it was awesome. Like,
and this film was fun, I think, musically too, because there was a lot of variety from scene to scene. There was a little bit like anything. There was a lot of creative,
like orchestral, and then you had synthesizer.
And we were thinking about one of the things when we first read the script and talked to Keitha about it is we were thinking about John Hughes movies and just how music is used in comedies where there's pathos, like things are wacky and it's a comedy and things are funny, but clearly things are going to get dark and there's a lot of pathos, and we're looking at it's almost like the reality of life is both sad and funny. And in John Hughes movies, he's very good at those, and the way that music is used in those kind of movies is really like, I feel like the songs that we created for that were fun, but they're also kind of allowed the darkness to come through, and that's a fun juxtaposition to play with.
Yeah, that is fun. That's good. So I'm going to turn it on over to you guys to see if you have any questions. Yes. Adonis.
Has it been mostly films that you just, I mean, since you started the whole, like the company, has it been mostly films? Has it been like advertisements too, or you kind of, like...
Should we repeat the question?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you. We heard that the live stream doesn't hear the question. So has it been mostly films that they've worked on? Oh, yes. Very good. Way to project. Very nice.
She's also going to repeat for you.
Yes, I can repeat.
So, yeah, when I started with the scoring, like my first thing was a theater piece, and then I started scoring independent, like short films, and then, yeah, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, I started doing the commercial work, which is fun and cutthroat.
And lucrative.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And our first thing together was actually TV. Our first job together was was doing Nickelodeon, music for Nickelodeon.
Nick Jr.
Yeah. But films and documentaries, I mean, I think we've had a lot of variety between advertising and film, and some web, stuff, some stuff for online content, online media content. I think we've sort of covered through all those. I mean, I would say film for us is, there's such a different feel in working with a filmmaker and scoring a film. I mean, there's a documentary that James and I scored that I also produced, and this is a documentary that is going to where it was about photographs that were discovered in Greenville, Mississippi during legal segregation. And these photographs have been acquired by the Smithsonian Museum. And the project became a very special project to us because, telling a story, a real story, and providing the music and the sound to tell someone's really personal journey with history, I would say that was a highlight for us and what we've worked on, because we like working on projects where there's a real personal connection for somebody, or there's a real sense of, it doesn't always have to be an activist nature, but we like that sort of feeling like that someone's telling this story and it's going to impact a lot of people, and it's going to be resonant in a lot of different ways, not just entertaining, but educational. And I would say that was like a really big highlight, scoring that.
I pretty much, I'll take anything that I believe in, or like whatever they want to use me for. So, some people will be like, we have a composer, could you do sound design? I'm like, absolutely. Yeah. And, whatever it is, like I just love creating and being part of the collaboration, and just, making sure everything like runs smoothly. I'm a little OCD, so I want to make sure everything's cool, and I want to like keep it in budget, and
Sarah.
I feel like I would be so influenced by the music. Like music is that one art form that just immediately takes you somewhere. So like as a director filming a scene, I'm always wondering when they think of, for me, doing it during it. So the question is, have you ever scored a film before it was even shot? I mean, I know you've done scenes. Do you ever, and like how
Okay, so have you ever scored a film before it's shot, or have you done it in sections and touched on it?
Not the entire film. That's why we're here speaking, so I can throw this out into the universe.
Absolutely.
Like, I want to, because I think, it's like when I read a script, like my background, it's like I'm a musician, I'm a performer, and so when I read the script, like I'm thinking of the filmmaker's description, like, this is what it's sort of like, and this is what we want it to look like. So like I'm scoring, like I visualize the scene, and like, yeah, I would love to score the picture before it's actually done, or, parts of it that would help influence the director, if we're like, hey, this is totally gonna work, and I think Christopher Nolan did that with Hans Zimmer. Like they started working on the music and then they started filming it, and then Christopher Nolan wouldn't let Hans Zimmer watch any of the film. So he only had the script. So he had to go by the script, and so he scored the entire film, and then they put the two together at the end.
I mean, again, I think this is a shift that would need to happen. I think we shifted away from doing this, which is why I would say, James is probably not alone. I would say probably a lot of composers say they come in at the end. It's just sort of like slap it on at the end, do it at the end. And I think it would be a different way of approaching your filmmaking by doing it in doing it earlier.
Collaborative effort from the onset.
And I wanted to just say that sometimes, like, I find like the filmmaker will lose objectivity because you shot it, you wrote it, you've been editing it, and you're like, you get to that. I do it with music. I'll be like arranging it, and I'm like, no, this is not it. And it's because I'm just too into it, and I've lost, the objectivity is like flown out the window. So it's like if you can collaborate with the composer and the editor and the cinematographer, like work out the scene so you're not sick of it by the time you're in post and ready to go, like, oh, we can score it this way or put this sound in there. Because sometimes what happens is I will get too much freedom where they're like, just put music behind it, keep this thing going. And I kind of feel like it gets overscored. And then it's just sort of like this, like a montage-y piece with all this music. And just because it's mine, I don't feel it has to be in there. Sometimes less is more. So, if you could work that out in the beginning, it'll just kind of move it.
Yeah, I like it. Anyone else? Yes, Erica.
Absolutely, yeah. You want to repeat it?
Oh, I'm so not used to this. If someone approached you about a short, would you still take it?
Absolutely.
Great.
I like shorts, and just the way media is presented now. Like, it's like the stuff that I work on, my personal projects, I do between like a minute and a half to like just under 3 minutes. So now what I do is I write a song within that, like, we'll say 2 minutes, and then I think of like an accompanying video piece, and I work on that together. So, gone are the days of album-oriented rock. I've done that, but now you have the iPad or the iPods that shuffle the music, and it's like I used to like do this concept album where everything flowed into the other, and then you hear it on somebody's iPod, and it like doesn't go to the next song, and you're like, no, you can't listen to it like this. And it's like, so everything is like, I like the little short form stuff. So yeah, shorts are great.
We had a really cool experience working on a short, which is actually what brought us to the Bahama International Film Festival, was Emily Best, who now created Seed and Spark.
Best. SeedandSpark.com.
If you guys know Seed
Use
and
it for
Spark.
all of your crowdfunding needs.
So Emily, her father wrote, they wrote a children's book together. Was it? Or her father wrote the book?
He wrote it. It was a story about her.
It was called The Deep. And they turned the film into an animated short, and James scored that, and that's what brought us to the festival, and we met a lot of people. And that was, I don't know even how long that was, but that was an awesome little short, and we had a lot of fun scoring that, and it was animated and in the family film division. But yeah, short, good things can come in small packages, and we like working with people who are at all levels of their career, and we we just like that organization and that tenacity and like a cool project. And if you've got your stuff together, we're always interested in like talking to people about their ideas and seeing where they're at.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a really interesting point about the creative process in general, that as creatives, you want to create. So as long as you're creating with worthy projects, with people who have their shit together, then yeah, why not take that? Because you want to create and they want to create. So it's a worthy project. You can't always have the top of the top of the top, and no creator does, no matter what. And that should never be the goal. It's just to do the work and have a voice. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents. Does anyone else have a question? Yes, Brian.
Yeah, how do you think music will affect like 3D films or like the new VR goggles? Music?
Oh, how would music affect the new 3D films or I don't know what the VR goggles?
Virtual reality.
Virtual reality goggles, yes.
See, that is something. I don't own any of that technology, but I would totally be into that. Something my mom used to joke around about, like really bassy music. She's like, oh, it's high colonic sound, because it like rumbles your guts. And like that would be really fun to think about, especially, if you're trapped in this world to like I love, playing with the stereo field with music and with sound effects, like when you hear stuff flying around, because that can totally screw with your mind, and it's like, like this morning I was having my coffee in the backyard and I was like doing some push-ups and this mosquito was like right in my ear. I was like, nee, nee. And then I closed my eyes and I listened to everything else around me and I was like, I wish I could have recorded that, because, it was, and my eyes started to water because that sound, you're like, but it was amazing. Like, so in a 3D world. If you think of your
sound dimensionally, the way the 3D or this new technology is going to be, you're giving people, which is something that James is really into and we talk about all the time, is giving people an experience. I think that you have a whole new generation of audience that wants sometimes to a detriment, wants experience over story. Which is maybe why they're going to see the giant action rumble. They want you to take them on almost like they're on a roller coaster that's a movie, as opposed to characters that are talking and going through something transformational. Those are very different audiences. And if you're into this 3-dimensional world, it's like, I think the coolness in that is experience, is like taking people on a sensorial experience. So sound, to answer your question, I think sound would really be a huge part of that.
I mean, we all, it's like, why do we watch a film? We want to like kind of escape, for a couple hours, it's like there's times where I'm just like, when you're like, I'm going to watch something so stupid and mind numbing because like I can't handle anything that's too intellectual. And I do it all the time. I'll be like working, 8 to 12 hours and I'm like, just give me something stupid to watch. And like, I'll wipe the drool off my mouth and go to bed afterwards. And it's like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
You need that. Or like I really love psychedelic things. Like just stuff that, things that move weird and sound weird and stuff moving all around you, like creating that, augmented reality. And especially with sound, if you have your eyes closed, because then your brain, you're imagining things and you can just input through the sound what you want you give the listener like little ideas. It's like anything creative and artistic, like, I'm on board. So
Yes. Do you ever dream up a musical score?
I'll wake up if there's sections of a film that I can't figure out what I'm scoring, and I've woken up and ran into my studio and turned on everything, and we'll just like do a rough thing, and then like pace my driveway and work out the timing, and then come in and do it. So I mean, everyone does it. It's like when you're thinking so hard on something, when you go to sleep, you're gonna, something's gonna churn up there.
Something's gonna pop up. I love it. Did anyone? Yes, Sarah.
What is the best way somebody can come and approach you in terms of collaborating? Like, if you're in the room, you could already say, yes, we're on board with the project. How does somebody best utilize you and have that like what language helps that conversation?
What is the best way for a filmmaker to approach you, and how is it best to utilize you? and approach that conversation. Did I get that correct? Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty approachable. I've just made like to anybody. I've just like I like to work with people and help people, and I guess just share your idea. Like what do you want to do? You can.
What you mean in the actual conversation? Like we're already sitting at the table? Yeah. So we're sitting at the table. I mean, a lot of times it's telling the story. Like back at the beginning of this conversation tonight, we were talking about being able to tell your story really well, like verbally. And I think when you're talking to a composer or a sound person, you're talking about what you're trying to express, like either if it's scene by scene or it's just an overarching conversation that you're having, like this is what I want the audience to feel. I think people express themselves differently, and we've worked with people that are like, you just throw me some ideas and we'll tell you whether we like them. And we've also talked with people that wanted to do a little bit more hand-holding, like we're going to go through this together. It sort of depends on how well, if we've worked with the person before or it's a brand new relationship. I think that's going to influence the conversation. I think it's just about opening the dialogue to how sound and music can help elevate that story. Like, and what do you want your audience to walk away with, or what do you want them to feel in a particular scene? I think that would be really beneficial, to the conversation. And then very often James can come back and say, oh, well, it can be really specific as like an instrument. Like, let's talk about the guitar, or let's talk about drums or piano. And it can get really instrument specific, or it can get into tone. Like, what if we just got into tones and layers of sound? And so the more that you kind of communicate what you want to feel or highlight in a scene, then that composer would come with instrument ideas, and it would be sort of this collaborative conversation.
And also, like anything that you would have in your mind, like say if you're writing it and you're imagining the scene, and like you have a piece of music in your head or something, like I always tell people, like send me a video or a track of something. They don't want to use that, but they want to use something similar, and it's like we can deconstruct.
That is when temp tracks are helpful.
Yeah, that is when temp. Sometimes it moves it along, and
full circle.
And even like just sounds like instruments, I want a drum that sounds like this one in this song, and you go, oh, cool, instead of trying to describe it, because I haven't been able to add Mind Reader onto my resume yet. I'm still working on that, but it's like, have your notes and bag of tricks, and
That's great. Do you have a question? No? Everybody's good? Okay, so I want to leave on this one last question. It's very profound, a chin scratcher, if you will. Yep, there it is. Yes, scratch with the mic. Excellent.
Fully.
So, if Lythion music was to leave the world with a legacy, what would it be?
Do you need a minute? I guess that means he needs a minute. I mean, I think that we would probably, have a few things to say about that. I can speak for myself in that a lot of the projects and the future projects that I'm looking to take on as a producer and as a music composer are projects, again, that have an activist nature to them. And that doesn't mean they have to be a documentary. They can be a narrative, but they're speaking to the universe about something. I admire people that are shakers and movers, and they upset the apple cart a little bit. They tell stories that maybe are a little socially dangerous. They bring up topics that are sensitive. I like people that push the envelope, because I think that film can spark conversation. And so I would like to say that Lythion music was a part of projects. We've already been a part of some, but I'd like to continue to be part of projects that are important to sort of our world conversation.
Yeah, I think it's, and especially, the artists that we are, is like we're so sensitive to everything in life. That's why we create something, and whether it's to expose something nefarious and evil, or to show people the beauty in something. You know, like people might walk past it every day, and then like somebody can capture on film, like this is what you're walking past, and here's the beauty of it, and you have to sit back and watch it in this video or film, and it's like, oh my God, it's breathtaking. I mean, where I'm at in my life right now, like I want to make a difference in people's lives. I want to help them. Like if I can offer my skills and it works out, you know, we work with Alzheimer's and early dementia patients. We do music and storytelling events, and it's awesome, you know, and it's random because you never know. We get to know these people, but then, you know, the next time we see them, it could be something else. And, you know, like I want to be behind the scenes and of good doing, I guess. You know, I don't have to be in the spotlight, but like, and I want to use music and film to show that, and because that's what gets people's attention. You know, it's like, boom.
Oh, I love that. I literally just got chills. Like honestly, I legit did, because I think that's what we're all here for, whether we're creatives or doctors or lunch ladies or whatever. We're here for each other, and we're here to connect, and we're here to find our way towards one another and help each other out. And isn't that what it's all about? And I think that you know, we're given the gifts we're given in this world to serve in whatever way we can. And
correct.
It's beautiful. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. And
thanks, guys.
I loved it. It was great. This was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.